The mid 1990s were an odd time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were at the brink of perhaps the franchise's greatest lull. After the release of TMNT 3, it was clear they weren't the box office draw they had been a couple years prior. Toy sales were declining, and the iconic cartoon was just sort of limping along. There was a sort of power vacuum in the action franchise realm around 1993, with all sorts of franchises playing King of the Hill. Stuff like Cowboys of Moo Mesa and Street Sharks and Biker Mice from Mars. But it was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that stole the crown in 1993 and captured everybody's attention. But with that came a whole new slew of knockoffs trying to take a piece of the Power Rangers pie. Stuff like tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills and superhero samurai cyber squad tried to cash in on the cheaply made but high yielding martial arts TV show market. Even Saban, the creators and producers of Power Rangers, they hedged their bets and they tried to compete with themselves with stuff like VR Troopers and Big Bad Beetleborgs. But the whole Power Rangers fad had really kind of died down around 1996. Call it an oversaturated market, call it too much of a good thing too fast, or, I don't know, blame it on the rise of video games and internet grabbing kids' attention. But it had all faded away just about as fast as it had started. But that didn't stop the Law brothers, Chris, Ron, Dennis, and Jeremy, from showing up about a year late to the party in 1997 and attempting to launch their own action-based franchise. They wanted to make a movie that would spawn sequels and action figures and all kinds of crazy merchandising. The result was Warriors of Virtue, about a kid who falls victim to a bully's challenge and he accidentally gets sucked into a magical world full of talking animals with mystical martial arts powers.
Started with a dare.
To hang with us, you gotta be initiated.
Now Ryan Jeffers will be transported to a world beyond the known universe, where he is the last hope.
Houston, we have a problem.
To unravel an ancient secret.
The answer lies with you.
And save an entire planet.
He must have been a great leader in the world.
Warriors of Virtue, rated PG. Starts Friday, May 2nd.
I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Nobody saw Warriors of Virtue in theaters in 1997. There's actually a legend that landed on the film's Wikipedia page that I remember from my childhood, that the film's frantic editing and absurd Dutch angles made a prominent film critic throw up right there in the theater. Gene Siskel called it out for being exactly what it was, a Power Rangers knockoff, which was in turn basically just a knockoff of Ninja Turtles. The film made like $6 million in theaters against a budget of like over $60 million. It became full-on video store fodder, and that's exactly where people like me watched it for the first time. It didn't make any meaningful money in the home video market, but it did kind of find an audience, and it has become something of a minor cult classic, mostly from people thinking it was some sort of fever dream they had, and then finding out it was actually real. But did they discover a good movie? Well, no. But there's a lot of potential there. The main actor kid, Mario Yedidia, he's actually pretty good. He didn't stay in acting very long, but between this and co-starring with Robin Williams in the movie Jack, he showed a lot of chops. Anyway, Ryan, who's played by Yedidia, gets transported into the magical world of Tao after falling into a whirlpool at a water treatment plant. He wakes up and he's in a world populated by both humans and anthropomorphic animals, and there is like some kind of mystical war going on. The good side, which is populated by the talking animals and led by 5 kangaroo warriors who represent the elements, just go with it, are protecting their world's life springs from Komodo, who drains them to try and keep himself young. Why they didn't make Komodo some sort of like awesome like lizard warlord, I don't know. The production design of this film is frustratingly uneven. There are sets that are amazing and epic, like the village where everybody lives and Komodo's palace, but the woods, where a lot of the action takes place, look really cheap and soundstagey and like not in a whimsical like storybook kind of way. So a big trick to making something cheap look like $1 million is to light it and shoot it properly, and the film just epically fails on that level. Everything outside said village and palace look like a weird, cheap like music video for Enya or somebody. The Law brothers were all first-time producers, never having made a movie before, and you can physically see where they overspent and underspent on the film's production. It's kind of wild. But the main attraction is the Ruse, the titular Warriors of Virtue, and they are nightmare fuel at first, but you do get used to them. The idea of having the performer's eyes be visible gives them like a weird, creepy shopping mall Easter Bunny vibe at first, but they landed talent like Doug Jones to perform in the suits, so there is life and soul there. The rough part is that aside from the female of the group, they all look exactly alike, and it's really difficult to tell who's who and who's speaking, which obviously did not lend itself to action figure sales either. The Roos are kind of like the least impressive of the practical animal suits. I don't know why they didn't diversify and make some of the more interesting animal designs part of the team. Like, why isn't this awesome ox guy the lumbering hero of earth or metal or whatever? Anyway, the villain is played by Angus McFadden, who is normally great at chewing scenery, but here he plays Komodo like a horny, spoiled man child, like yelling and screaming all the time, and like not in like a scary way. Maybe it's meant to be like a stark contrast between him and like the balanced and reserved nature of the Ruse, but it just doesn't really work. What does work, however, is Marley Shelton. Revisiting this movie just kind of reawakened a late childhood crush that I forgot I even had. Marley gets the chance to play both an innocent princess type and vamp it up as like a femme fatale villain. If you somehow missed the Kimberly the Pink Ranger bullet train to puberty, Marley Shelton had you covered in 1997. But what ultimately sinks this movie and keeps it in missed opportunity status is the cinematography. Like I said before, most of the movie looks cheap largely because of how it's shot and how it made a film critic sick right there in the theater. I'm guessing it's mostly due to the really odd choice of having almost all the action scenes edited with step printing. Step printing is the process of printing individual frames of film multiple times onto a single frame of the finished film. The result is like a ghostly looking effect with residual motion blur. It's sometimes used to make a time-elapse effect, or sometimes it's meant to like emphasize something being strange and otherworldly. Like Peter Jackson, for example, he used it to really great effect in several scenes in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like this scene here in Return of the King when Pippin looks into the Palantir. Now, with Warriors of Virtue, I don't know if it was a misguided creative decision to make all the fight scenes seem mystical and fantastical, or if they looked at the dailies and they saw way too many seams and cracks in the Ruse suits. I don't know. But the massive overuse of step printing just makes the fight scenes really hard to look at, and it totally wrecks what appears to be pretty solid overall martial arts choreography. But you couple that with some insane Dutch angles all over the place, like this scene where two characters are sitting down on the ground talking, and one of them is almost shot at like a 90-degree angle, and you have a really, really uncomfortable movie that's just disorienting to watch. And while I'm not somebody who normally suffers from motion sickness on the regular, I do get a weird sort of anxiety while watching too many silly Dutch angles. Like the original Thor movie makes me like weirdly uneasy. So yeah, like I said, Warriors of Virtue was a total flop in theaters and a huge financial failure. And it did not spawn the lucrative merchandise frenzy that the Law brothers were hoping for. The only person to really come out of the whole thing unscathed was Tony Gardner, who designed and produced all of the makeup, the suits, and the animatronics for the film. And he actually went on to have a pretty prolific career as like a special effects and creature creation guy, and he's still active to this day. So I think it's still worth checking out Warriors of Virtue, just as an obscure oddity from the 90s. If you're looking for like 80s and 90s martial arts action, you're probably better off looking into director Ronny Yu's Hong Kong filmography. Or, fun fact, he actually got into horror films after making Warriors of Virtue and did both Bride of Chucky and Freddy vs. Jason, which I think are both really fun. I guess he figured if he was just going to make American critics sick, he just may as well do it on purpose. If you're looking for team-based action with lessons to learn, I would just stick with the stuff that Warriors of Virtue rips off, like Turtles or Power Rangers. And that's going to be it for this episode of Friday Night Rental. Be sure to rewind before you return and tell your friends you love them.